Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello and welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin. You may know me from the Haskincast podcast or from other things I've done, but here I am all about the band Uriah Heep. Now, this is a fan podcast that is endorsed by Uriah Heep, and that really, honestly, it means the world to me because without that endorsement, I probably wouldn't be doing this. And I'm so grateful to be able to, give you guys a view on all of their songs. I'll be covering all the ones from the studio and the bonus tracks and maybe someday some live stuff. I don't know. We'll see. But for now, it's all studio stuff. And I'm really excited to, kind of just walk you through all these songs, give you my thoughts on them, and share this with you because this band has meant a lot to me over the course of my lifetime. Otherwise, I wouldn't be investing so much of myself into this. Why would I do that if I didn't care? I wouldn't, of course. So it's awesome that this was able to be something I could do for you guys. And having the band's endorsement has just been huge. While we're getting into things, I want to take a moment to thank my graphic artist, Scott Lazinski, who is the one that created the stunning logo for the show. And also my friends over at Audionamics. Without their product, Instant Dialogue Cleaner, my podcasting life would be a lot more time consuming and difficult. So thank you guys for the thousands of hours you've saved me cleaning audio by hand like I used to. Also, of course, I have to thank my brothers at the Deep Dive Podcast Network who have just been amazing in their warm reception and support of me and the show. Nate and John over at the Deep Purple Podcast, The Simple Man at Skinnerd Reconsidered, T-Bone, Terry Mathley at T-Bone's Prime Cuts, Rye at Sabbath Bloody Podcast, Paul, Joe, and David at The Lap of the Pods, which is a podcast about Queen. And also, if you guys are into concert history, go check out gottahear'emall.com for some wonderful concert memories and information and some memorabilia in the pictures as well. Mostly Deep Purple and Emerson, Lake and Palmer, but you never know what you'll find. And that's another great site, so check them out. I did forget to mention on the last show all the places that you can follow this podcast and how you can reach out. You can go to the main hub website, which is scotthaskin.com/Uriah_Heep_podcast, or just go to scotthaskin.com and click on the Uriah Heep podcast link. Probably the easiest way to do so. Underneath the shows, I have all the individual shows, show notes, and all that laid out. But if you're listening on any of the major podcast apps, you probably have the access to the show notes from there. You've got, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Podbean, all the major ones, and Spotify. I'm sure that there's more that I can't think of right off the top of my head, but it's in a bunch of places. But those are the main podcast hubs anyway. And then obviously you can also go to the Facebook page, which is at www.facebook.com/UriahHeepPodcast, all one word. And I will be doing some giveaways and things with that group. So you'll want to get in on that. Make sure that you like that page, and I'll be doing drawings down the road for some prizes and stuff. And then, you can follow us on Twitter at Heep Podcast, Instagram at UriahHeepPodcast. And then you can always email at us at UriahHeepPodcast@gmail.com. Those are all the places that you can connect, and I answer all of that directly. So there you have it. I want to get into this song, Walking in Your Shadow, because it is another one that was just one that gripped me right off the bat from the very first time I heard it. It just is it's just like you're in this little boat and the song just kind of, sails where it goes and you're just along for the ride. And I've performed the song as a drummer a couple of times. It's a lot of fun to play. But it's, it's vocally driven. It's got a good story to it, but definitely great support in music as always. And a very interesting recording, too, that we're going to talk about as we go through the song. But certainly one of my favorites. This is the second song that appears on Very Heavy, Very Humble. And I didn't get to talk about, I just forgot the artwork on the first album. There's, as I recall, there were two different bits of artwork. There's the one with the weird looking sort of face in the cobwebs. And I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe that was the European version. And then the one that was like a drawn sort of serpent, I think was the American version. That was the one that I had anyway. I don't recall having the one with the face, so I could be wrong. But there was some differences in the covers on a couple of the albums. Salisbury was the same thing, completely different cover on the American release versus the European release. And again, that's all the record company. The band really doesn't typically get much say so in that, especially back then. I don't know what they fight for nowadays, but it's tough because you think about the image and think about the image as it's associated with the band, but it's, that's all marketing people. That's not even necessarily the band's decision. So it gets to be kind of a weird territory because you think this image, well, the band must have chosen that for a reason, when a lot of times they didn't. So it's weird that, you write the music, you represent yourself on a musical standpoint, but not necessarily on a graphic standpoint. It's kind of one of the things I like about being a solo artist is that I have the opportunity to choose everything, but I also have to do everything myself and make all the decisions. So, 6 and 1/2 over the other, it's can be a tough thing either way. But in this case, they had the two different album covers. I'm really not sure I understand either one of them, to be honest, because it's such an eclectic collection of songs that I don't know how you would really pin it down. Whereas, the other ones are a little more cohesive and themed a little bit. So you can have a cover that sort of encompasses that, or at least the feel of the album as much. But I struggle with that with some of my own instrumental stuff too. It's like, how do you define this collection of songs? It can be a real challenge. But in any case, both covers I thought were kind of cool. The cobweb cover is really kind of haunting and paints a picture that it's a much darker album than it really is. At least that's the impression that I get. I mean, the person's got the shadows on them, so you can't really tell what's going on with them, but you see enough of them to understand it's a person. And then the serpent album cover is really just a drawn serpent. So there's not really much that you can look at that and go, I get what this album is. So you really just have to hear it is what it comes down to. And I'm glad that we're doing that. So before we get into the song, as always, I say that this is the second review episode, I think it's important to find out Mick Box's perspective on this one.
Walking in Your Shadow, the song from Very Heavy, Very Humble, track 2 on side A, I think it was. That song, if there was an influence anywhere, it was, I tell you what, David and I went and saw a band called Free playing Wood Green in London, and they were just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I remember Paul Kossoff was playing with it. He cut his finger and there was blood all over the guitar, but he just had his head swaying back and he was lost in the moment and didn't miss a beat. He was just fantastic, and it was just the start of that really simplistic rock that with a great vocalist with Paul Kossoff, of course, and Andy Fraser playing those wonderful bass lines, and Simon Kirk keeping a metronomic drum beat. But there was very much in that mode that I think Walk in Your Shadow came about. We're very influenced by that, and it's a very simplistic song with a great groove, and I really like it. It's a really good song. But I just want to let you know that that's probably where the influence came for that particular song in that particular time. And Free was such a great band. Everything they did was just fantastic, and we loved it. And the simplicity of it was the essence of it. Less is more, I think, is what they say, and in that case, they proved it 100% right every time. Thanks.
Well, I couldn't agree with Mick more on that. It's very interesting as a musician, as a creator, or a composer of anything really, or even if you're an author or a screenwriter. You have to know when to put things in and you have to know when to not put things in. And sometimes just doing something that's very basic can be more effective than doing something that's just filled with things. And when I talked to Paul Newton, the bass player on this song, he was saying that too. He was saying that a lot of times it's about where you leave the spaces, not just where you play the notes. And I think that's very true. As a drummer, I feel the same way. Sometimes not putting a drum fill in can be more powerful than whatever drum fill that you might have put in at that time. So with that in mind and that premise going ahead, and he's right, that was a great band. definitely somebody that's worth looking into for you guys that are Heep fans. It's always good to have the influences of the band that you love and see how that came about, where they got their influences. And yeah, definitely worth checking out. So take some time to do that. That's your homework. I gave you homework. Up to you. I'm not going to grade it. But I say that we just jump into the song and see where it goes, and we'll go from there. Okay, I know I'm already stopping the song, right? But I already have something to talk about. I'm going to start it over, but I really want you guys to pay attention to the ring out that you hear on the bass drum, because that is already giving the song character, right? You're not just getting your flat or punchy bass drum. You're getting something that's already got, it's kind of setting a tone. You know, it's saying, hey, pay attention. Something's going to happen. It's already pulling me in to want to know what's going to happen next. And sometimes, you know, like we were saying, sometimes the simplicity, it makes a big difference in a song, but sometimes those little subtleties also can be really important, because a bass drum doesn't typically ring out like that. We work really hard to dampen the ring out so that it doesn't bleed into anything else. And here, I think it was kind of enhanced a little bit and really played up, which is interesting. So I'm going to start it over again, but listen for that. So you can see that simplicity. And again, we've got that, let's just play a chord underneath of the verse and let the singer shine. We'll fill in the background, but we're not going to override what the story is, because you really need to be understanding what we're talking about here. And I love that balance that they find, because it just really is magical. And a lot of bands really don't do that. It's certainly an art that Heep had and continues to have now, as you listen to even up through their current stuff. So it's a great formula, because it allows everything to be heard, everyone to shine, and everybody to play their part and do it well. And I really like the drums on this. In fact, I meant to mention this earlier. The drum sound on the album, being a drummer, I'm usually critical of those, but I really like it. I like the snare being a little bit dry on this. It's not drowning in reverb. The room doesn't feel like it's too big because of it. Same with the bass drum. It's not too loud or boomy in the mix. It sits very nicely. And it's just so beautifully crafted. And there's a lot of really good snare accents in the song, really working well with the snare and the hi-hat. But the song is just so cohesive. They're so together. And this last section that we heard is a great segue into a part that's coming up later. Really, really blends smoothly. So let's hear a little bit more. One thing that's always really amazed me about David Byron's vocals is how even in, a simple song, a little bit bluesy, which you could do some power in, but he just finds a way to bring out such emotion and intensity, even when the music that's backing him is not intense. Like, this is very simple riff. It's really clean. There's not a lot of, letting the notes ring out, blending them one into another. It's da 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 da, a little more staccato. And with a song like that, you would think that a more straightforward, drier vocal might work better, but he really just has that ability to bring out just as much power or emotion as if it was, an upbeat rocker. And I've always liked that about him. It just seems so effortless. And I don't know whether it was or not. I didn't ever have the chance to meet him, But the feeling that I get from the end result is it's just his style. It's just what he can do. Yeah, I really like that middle section. It just kind of brings a little bit of a calming, a little bit of a, yeah, I'm going through some stuff, but it's going to be okay feel to me. Really beautiful in the middle of this song. But something just occurred to me, and I don't know that I ever noticed this before, but I'm not hearing any keyboards. I'm hearing guitar on both the left and the right side, whereas Gypsy was, the right side was the keyboard and the left side was the guitar. So I don't know if that's all Mick or if that's Ken playing some guitar on this. But in any case, I'm not hearing keyboard. So either it's very low in the mix or there isn't any. I don't know. But that's interesting. I can't believe I've never caught that. Of course, I'm listening on much better headphones than I used to. So maybe that has a little bit something to do with it. And these are the bonus deluxe CDs. So maybe there was a little bit of remixing or remastering. I think there was, if I remember right. So there might be a little more clarity or a little less clarity. Who knows? Just because something was remixed doesn't mean it was mixed better. It all depends on what you like and what you're listening for. If I am worse off, it's all because of you. That's always been one of my favorite lines in any song. I've certainly worked for a few people that I could say that about over the course of my life. It's really a powerful line, though, because it's not taking responsibility. It's kind of throwing the responsibility on somebody else, which could be justified. Hard to tell in this case, but it's an interesting line nonetheless. I quote it in my head a lot, more so than I say it verbally, I would imagine. But it's a great line. That one's always stuck with me. And I love the sort of offset vocals that are adding a little bit. I don't know if that's a delay or if that's somebody singing a second track, but it's got, it really adds another, I think, level of depth to the song. And that's hard to say, level of depth, but I did it twice. And yeah, let's see what else the song has to offer.
Set sail for the sun. Make every cloud your slave. Don't be alone. No!
Very straightforward backing through that really wonderful solo. One of the things, and I've said this before, that I really love about Mick Box's playing in guitar is that no matter how fast he's playing, he always keeps things within context of the song. And I think this is a great example where everything you feel, all the notes, the progression of his solo, you feel like it really belongs with this song. And just another great one from him. And I like that there wasn't a lot going on behind it. It's keeping with that, let's keep this a straightforward and simple song. Not a lot of adventure from Paul on bass or Alex on drums, just a lot of great support, which I think is what really works for this song. Whereas with Gypsy, you heard a lot more playing, a lot more adventure. but that was a more progressive song. Whereas this being straightforward, I like the fact that they laid back a little bit and just let the song develop as it needed to. Now, I didn't mention this earlier, but you hear in that section, there's some feedback that comes out through there. Not the unpleasant feedback that makes you stick your finger in your ear and want to behead the engineer, but the kind of feedback that actually like works with the music a little bit. And I think that's nice because it doesn't require them to play more notes. It's just something that you can kind of let ring out and fill in the background a little bit. And also, you know, David, his vocals come back in with a little more aggression this time. You could hear how he could sing with that grit, but he's also very good at singing nice and smoothly and beautifully. So it's a nice trick to pull out of the bag on a song like this, where there's not as much going on musically, and the vocals are really driving it to really bring it home, especially in the final verse. I really like that choice for this. I think it was the right thing to do. So for here we have, those patterns repeating again as the song fades out. Really, really nice. Very well put together. A song that you could, just kind of relax and listen to without feeling, too intense or too aggressive or like, oh my God, what happened there? I got to listen back to it again. It's just a nice, straightforward bluesy song. I really can see the influence in it that Mick was talking about. And, it's not a rocker song. It's an interesting choice for a second song on the album coming after Gypsy, which was a little more hard driving and aggressive. And then having this being the second song, just kind of mellowing it down a little bit. But it was a great choice. And I think that it really flows nicely from Gypsy into this. Great pick, guys. I really enjoyed it. I hope that you guys enjoyed my dive into this song. Really interesting, especially, the beginning with the effects on the bass drum, and then the fact that there's a second guitar and no keyboard. Definitely a surprise for me. And I don't know how many times I've heard this song. I've even, like I said, I've performed it a couple of times. So it always strikes me funny when you hear a song through a different set of ears and the things that it can bring out. In fact, somebody told me, I think it was my friend Nash in Australia, said to me once, if you really want to learn a song, pick one instrument and listen to the song over and over and over, only focusing on that one instrument until you know every single thing that it does. And then you move on to the next instrument and repeat the process until you've been through the whole song. And at that point, when you're really peeling all the layers back and you can appreciate every single note, every single phrasing that was played by the musicians or in the vocals, it really gives you a deeper perspective and appreciation of the song. Even if you don't like a song, you can find appreciation in it when you really understand what went into it. I've done that. I've been through that process. It's a little bit difficult because you do tend to get distracted sometimes. Maybe your favorite part comes up and you're like, oh, I forgot to listen to this because I got distracted. And that's okay. You can listen to it as many times as you want. But if you try that on a song, it has some really interesting results. I've actually learned quite a bit about artists and their mindset and their focus and how they put things together when I start hearing things like that. I actually even did it with some of my own music and actually had forgotten some of the parts that I had written for some of the older songs. So it's a great exercise. I would suggest giving that a shot. Take one of your favorite songs and do that. See how it goes. It's a lengthy process. It takes some patience and it really takes some paying attention, but it can be a lot of fun too. So give that a shot. But in the meantime, that was Walking in Your Shadow. I'm really grateful I got to bring the song to you guys. It's a great song. And we'll see you in the next show with the next song, number 3 on Very Heavy, Very Humble. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show, and thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!